Lyra Moonshadow ran. Her legs ached, muscles screaming with every step, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Not now. Not when the night had turned against her. Not when the wind had become a knife, slicing through her skin and biting at her bare arms where the torn fabric of her gown had left them exposed. Snow whipped into her face, blinding her, stinging her eyes, but still she pushed forward. She stumbled over roots hidden beneath the frozen forest floor, her fingers clutching the remnants of her wedding dress, shredded and sodden, clinging to her like a second skin. Every sound around her made her heart jump. The wind groaned through the skeletal trees like a chorus of ghosts. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the underbrush made her flinch. She could hear them, the wolves. Not all of them were friendly. Their eyes glinted in the darkness, some like molten gold, others black as shadows. She felt them watching her, circling her, waiting for a moment of weakness. Her body was trembling. Not just from the cold, though the frost was gnawing at her bones. Not just from the bleeding on her arms and legs, though the cuts stung with fire. This trembling came from fear, from raw, unrelenting terror. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes every heartbeat echo like a drum in your skull. She had never felt anything like this before. And yet, beneath it, beneath the fear and the pain, something else stirred. A flicker of silver light pulsed through her veins. She could feel it, a trembling current of power that had always lived inside her, dormant, quiet, waiting. It rose now, sudden, hot and wild, threatening to consume her from within. She tried to push it down, to contain it, to pretend it was nothing, but it was impossible. She wanted out. And she didn't know how to control it. Not yet. The storm mirrored her turmoil. Snow fell like shards of glass, a blizzard tearing through the forest as if the sky itself were furious at what had happened. The wind screamed and moaned, lashing at her cheeks, tugging at her hair, carrying the faint scent of smoke. Smoke from the chapel. Smoke from her wedding. Smoke from the life she thought she had. She remembered it in flashes. Quick, violent memories that stabbed at her heart with a force stronger than any weapon. The chapel doors swinging open. Guests frozen in shock and horror. Her hands reaching for him, for her family, for someone, anyone, but there was chaos instead. Shouts. Screams. The crackle of fire devouring the wood, consuming everything she had ever believed would protect her. And then, darkness. A shadowy figure. She didn't see a face, only movement. Swift. Unstoppable. Taking her, lifting her into a world she didn't understand, tearing her away from everything she had known, everything she thought she could hold on to. Her breath caught in her throat. Her mind screamed, and still she ran, legs pumping, heart hammering, lungs burning with each ragged gasp. "Why me?" she whispered to the night. Her voice was small, fragile, almost swallowed by the storm. "Why now?" The trees blurred past her as she fled. Branches clawed at her dress, tore at her hair, slapped at her face. Snow filled her mouth and nose with every frantic breath, and still she ran, each step a desperate prayer, a silent promise that she would survive this. That she would not fall. Not yet. Somewhere behind her, a howl cut through the storm, sharp, predatory, and close. She froze for half a heartbeat, caught between the impulse to run and the terror of being hunted. Her heart slammed against her ribcage. The silver in her veins flared again, bright, wild, hot. Her body trembled with it, and for a moment she felt a surge of strength, a surge of something terrifying and beautiful all at once. Power. Raw, untamed, and dangerous. Lyra knew she had no choice. She could feel the danger closing in, the shadows bending closer, the eyes of creatures both human and beast tracking her every movement. But even as her muscles ached, even as the cold bit through her flesh, even as her chest heaved and the snow blinded her, there was something in that surge of silver fire that whispered to her. Whispered that she was not helpless. Whispered that she was more than what they feared. And yet, she was alone. Alone and terrified. The wind tore at her hair and the snow stung her eyes, and somewhere deep in the forest she felt it. The echo of the night, the presence of something waiting. Something dangerous. Something that wanted her. Her thoughts spun faster than her feet could carry her. Vapel. Her dress. The fire. The screams. The man who had taken her. He was out there. Somewhere. And he had changed everything. Her heart ached, her chest felt tight, and she couldn't breathe fast enough. And still she ran. The forest seemed endless, a maze of ice and shadow, but she pushed on, driven by fear and something else she didn't understand yet. Something like instinct. Something like hope. Or maybe it was anger. Or maybe it was the silver fire rising in her veins, whispering that she was not meant to be a victim, not meant to be controlled, not meant to be taken without a fight. The snow deepened. Each step was harder than the last. She fell once, then scrambled to her feet, knees bloody, hands raw, dress shredded, hair plastered to her face with sweat and snow. And still she ran. The howl behind her came again, closer this time, and she felt it in her bones. Not fear, not entirely. Something else. The pull of the hunt. The pull of survival. The pull of power. She glanced over her shoulder and saw the glint of eyes in the dark, the movement of shadows. Wolves. Not all of them. Something larger, more dangerous. She didn't stop. She couldn't. Not now. And then it came, the flare of silver inside her. Hot, wild, consuming. She hadn't meant for it to rise, but it did. It surged through her blood, through her bones. It made her stumble and cry out, but it also gave her speed she didn't know she had. She moved faster, dodged a fallen branch, and pushed through the snowdrifts as if they were nothing. Her mind was a whirlwind of memory and sensation. Her wedding. Her dress. Her family. The man who had taken her. The fire, the screams, the chaos. And through it all, a single piercing thought: I will survive. I will not be taken. I will not be controlled. The snowstorm raged around her, wind screaming, snow blinding, the world reduced to a blur of white and shadow. But in the middle of that storm, in the middle of terror and pain and fear, Lyra Moonshadow ran. She ran for her life. She ran for the fire in her veins. She ran for the girl she had been and the woman she was becoming. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her legs were screaming, her hands cut and bleeding, but she ran. And behind her, in the shadows, she felt them watching. The wolves. The hunters. The unknown. And she knew deep in her bones that whatever waited for her, whatever had stolen her wedding, whatever had pulled her into this nightmare, they were not ready for what she was about to become. And still she ran. Lyra's lungs burned. Her chest felt like it would split, and yet in the midst of the blizzard, when every step threatened to throw her to the icy ground, she heard it first. A sound that froze her blood more than the cold ever could. The crunch of snow that didn't belong to her own footsteps. The snap of a branch, deliberate, heavy, unervingly precise. And then, a shadow moved ahead, cutting through the white haze like a blade. She stumbled, heart hammering. Fear twisted her stomach, sharp and cold, but curiosity, a foolish, dangerous curiosity, propelled her forward. She barely had time to register the figure before it stepped fully into view. The snowstorm parted just enough to reveal him. Asher Blackthorn. Tall, impossibly broad, with eyes that gleamed silver even in the weak light of the storm. Eyes that seemed to see through the blizzard, through the snow, through her very soul. His movements were fluid, calculated, every step deliberate, yet somehow almost effortless. He did not rush, yet he moved faster than her scrambling limbs could keep track of. And then he spoke. Not loud, but low, almost a growl, and it wrapped around her bones like warmth from a fire she didn't know she'd been craving. Lyra Moonshadow, you don't belong here. Her legs wobbled. Her hands tightened on the tattered folds of her gown. The words weren't just a warning. They were recognition. Something in the way he said her name, slow, deliberate, made her stomach twist with confusion and longing all at once. How could he know her name? How could he know her? Before she could answer, before she could even think, a movement in the trees drew her attention. Shadow beasts. Wolves, blacker than the night itself, eyes glowing with malice, muscles tensing in predatory anticipation. Lyra froze, and the silver fire inside her surged, a tremor of energy she could not yet control. Asher moved then, swift and sudden, stepping between her and the danger. He didn't hesitate. He didn't falter. And yet he did not attack recklessly. Each movement was precise, lethal, controlled. The beasts hesitated, sensing something they could not name, something older, sharper, stronger than themselves. Lyra's heart pounded, erratic and uneven, and she noticed for the first time the tension in his body, the subtle twitch of muscle beneath leather and fur, the way his gaze never left her, even as he faced the beasts. He carried scars, faint, jagged lines along his forearms, subtle burns along his jaw, and they spoke of battles fought and losses endured. They told her he had survived betrayals that would have killed a lesser man. Her legs moved of their own accord, dragging her closer, but she was careful not to step too close, not yet. There was a wariness in her, a deep, instinctive caution. And yet, every instinct that told her to run collided violently with the pull she felt toward him, a pull she could neither name nor deny. The shadow beasts lunged, but Asher's hand moved faster. A flick of his wrist, a flash of energy, and the lead wolf froze mid-leap, snarling but unable to take another step. The other creatures skidded to a halt, eyes darting between Lyra and him, sensing a force they could not challenge. His gaze fell on her then, lingering in a way that made her breath catch. It was not pity. It was not judgment. It was recognition, acknowledgement, and something dangerously close to something she had never allowed herself to feel. Safety. And desire. He stepped closer and she could feel the heat radiating from him even through the layers of snow and ice, even through her own trembling. Every inch he closed was charged, electric, a delicate balance between protection and threat. Then his hand reached out, slow, hesitant, deliberate. The briefest touch on her shoulder, nothing more than a feathered brush, and yet it ignited her veins like fire. Her heart jumped violently and she swallowed against the sudden tightness in her throat. Fear tangled with something she did not understand. Desire, relief, confusion. Every emotion collided inside her chest, leaving her breathless. Asher's eyes softened, just enough to make her dizzy, just enough to make her question the boundaries she had erected around herself for years. His voice, low and steady, whispered almost to himself but loud enough for her to hear. "You're more than they know, Lyra. Stronger than they dare to believe." She wanted to respond, to tell him she didn't need saving, that she could handle herself. But she couldn't. Not with him standing there, silver eyes locking onto hers, the snow swirling around them like a veil hiding the world, leaving only the two of them, fragile, tense, alive. A growl rumbled in the distance, not hers, not his, but deep, throbbing, threatening. The beasts were not done. And yet, neither moved from their silent, frozen standoff. Lyra could feel the pull of the silver fire inside her again, stronger now, responding to him and only him. Her body trembled with energy she did not understand, energy that made her knees weak and her chest tight and her heart hammer so fast she thought it would burst. Asher's hand remained lightly on her shoulder, grounding her, warning her, reminding her. And in that moment every fear, every pain, every memory of betrayal, every thought of the stolen wedding day, every scar inside her heart seemed to collide and crystallize into a single overwhelming truth. She had not been abandoned. Not yet. And yet, there was danger still. Always danger. Behind them the forest waited. Above the storm raged. Around the shadows shifted. Lyra could feel it, could hear it in the low moans of wind and the distant snapping of branches. Something waited. Something hungry. Something older than the forest, older than the fire that had destroyed her wedding. And still she could not look away from him. Asher Blackthorn. Protector. Hunter. Danger. Mystery. His hand barely brushed hers again, and the heat, the energy, the electricity of it surged through her. Fear coiled inside her, twisting with desire and confusion. Why would someone like him risk himself for her? What did she possess that made him stand in the storm, facing creatures she had barely survived, shielding her with every fiber of his being? Her mind spun. Her pulse thundered. And still he held her gaze, unwavering, unyielding, like he could see into the very core of her, through the silver fire, through the terror, through the shattered remnants of her life, and find the girl she was beneath the scars, beneath the fear, beneath the trembling. And she realized, for the first time since the chapel burned, that perhaps she did not need to fight alone. Perhaps there was someone who would stand with her, someone who would see her, really see her, in the midst of the chaos and the storm and the fire inside her veins. And still she ran, though not away from him. Not yet. But alongside the surge of silver fire, alongside the chaos and the snow, she felt something else for the first time in her life. Hope. Fragile, dangerous, intoxicating hope. Lyra Moonshadow stumbled through the forest, chest heaving, every muscle trembling from exhaustion and adrenaline, and yet her mind refused to rest. The snow beneath her boots was soft and treacherous, concealing roots and frozen rocks that threatened to send her tumbling into the darkness below. But it wasn't the cold that made her shiver. It was memory. It was the weight of her own history pressing down on her like an invisible pack of wolves. Her exile from the Moonshadow pack had not been sudden. It had been a slow, creeping unraveling of trust, a series of small betrayals that compounded until she no longer recognized herself in the faces of those who had once called her family. They had whispered about her power behind closed doors, called her too unpredictable, too dangerous, too much. Too much for them to contain, too much for them to control. They had feared what they did not understand, and fear, she had learned, always breeds cruelty. She remembered the night it all began. Flames had licked the walls of the Elders' Hall, shadows dancing across the faces of her pack, distorted by panic and rage. Lyra had been there, young, untrained, her silver flame flickering weakly within her veins, But even that flicker had been enough to make them call her a curse. She had tried to explain, tried to plead, tried to make them see that her power could protect, could heal, could save. But they did not see. Their eyes, cold and sharp as icicles, had only seen danger. A memory surfaced, sharper than the rest, burning brighter than fire. Her mother's voice, urgent and trembling, cutting through the chaos of the night. Lyra, you must hide it. You must never let them see what you are capable of. Too many will fear it. Too many will hunt you for it. Lyra's hands clenched into fists as she remembered the words, as she felt the weight of them again, as if they were whispered directly into her ear even now. Forbidden shifts. Forbidden power. Forbidden bloodline. Every warning, every shrouded threat had been real. And yet, every lesson her mother had forced into her had done little to tame the fire within. The silver flame had always burned too brightly, always pushed too far, always refused to be contained. And now it surged again. In the cold of the forest, in the snow and the storm, in the presence of the Alpha who had appeared out of nowhere, it stirred with renewed ferocity. She could feel it twitching in her veins, igniting her senses, making her heart race. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. She had always feared it, feared that it would destroy everything she touched. And yet, part of her wondered if this power might be the only thing that could save her. Her eyes flicked toward Asher Blackthorn, standing a few steps ahead, silent, watchful, his presence anchoring her in ways she didn't fully understand. She didn't trust him, not yet. How could she? Trust had been a foreign concept for so long, a fragile dream that had shattered under the weight of betrayal and fear. And yet something about him made the forest seem less cold, the storm seem less cruel. His silver eyes had seen her in the middle of chaos and yet had not flinched. He had not recoiled from her power. He had not judged her. He had simply recognized her. Recognition. It was dangerous. It made her chest ache and her hands shake. It made her want to reach for him and hide from him at the same time. If he knew everything, the fire she could not control, the forbidden shifts, the night her pack had turned against her, would he still look at her this way? Would he still stand in the storm for her? Or would he see her as the world had always seen her? A threat, a curse, a girl too much to love? Her mind spiraled. Every step through the snow, every breath of icy air, brought another memory to the surface. Faces of friends who had whispered behind her back. Faces of mentors who had once promised guidance, now twisted in betrayal. Faces of strangers who had feared her, avoided her, mocked her in ways that cut sharper than any claw. And through it all, one unyielding truth remained. She had always been alone. Or at least she had thought she had. The silver fire within her pulsed, responding not just to fear but to him. Asher. She could feel the connection, subtle and terrifying, a thread that pulled her toward him even as her instincts screamed to run, to hide, to fight alone. It was impossible to define, neither fear nor desire, neither hope nor certainty. Something new. Something dangerous. Something she had never allowed herself to feel because allowing it could mean exposing the very thing that had made her a pariah. Her gaze flicked upward through the storm to the twisted, skeletal branches above, and she let herself remember a simpler time. Before exile, before fire, before betrayal. Before she had been taught to fear the very essence of herself. The wind tore at her hair, flinging snow into her eyes, and she blinked through it, heart heavy and mind racing. That girl. The girl who had laughed in the sun, who had believed in trust, who had believed she could belong, seemed like a memory from another lifetime. And yet, in Asher's presence, that girl stirred again. A flicker. A whisper of hope. A fragile tendril of trust that was daring to grow where she had long ago dug trenches of caution. He could not ignore it. He would not ignore it. Not if she wanted to survive the night. Not if she wanted to face the dangers that had torn her life apart. Not if she wanted to understand the pull she felt toward him. The memory of the night her mother had warned her surged forward again. They will never understand. They will never accept you. You must hide who you are. But she could no longer hide. The silver fire demanded she embrace it. The storm demanded she move forward. And Asher's unwavering gaze demanded she see herself as he saw her. Whole, powerful, dangerous, and alive. A howl echoed in the distance. A reminder that the forest had not yet released its grip on her. That danger was still very real. That the beasts and shadows waiting in the snow were only a heartbeat away. She felt the familiar tremor of fear, but it was tempered now by something else. Something stronger. Something that whispered, steady and relentless. You are not weak. You are not alone. You are more than they ever believed. Lyra's breath came faster, ragged and uneven, but her steps became surer. Every memory of exile, every scar, every whisper of betrayal, now fueled her determination. She would not falter. She would not be defined by the fear of others. She would survive. She would fight. And perhaps, she would learn to trust at least enough to allow Asher to stand with her, even if only for this night, even if only for this moment. Her gaze returned to him. The storm whipped around them, snow blurring the edges of the world, yet his presence remained clear, a lighthouse of stability in a sea of chaos. His silver eyes met hers, unflinching, unreadable, and she realized that she could no longer pretend. She could no longer shield herself from the truth that had been whispered in her bones since the moment they had met. If he knew everything, if he saw the fire, the danger, the past and still did not turn away, then perhaps, just perhaps, there was a path forward. A path that did not end in betrayal or exile. A path that might lead her not only to survival but to something she had thought forever out of reach. Belonging. And as the storm raged on, as the snow bit into her cheeks and the forest waited with bated breath, Lyra Moonshadow understood, with a sudden terrifying clarity, that the fire inside her was no longer just hers to fear. It was a force that could protect, a force that could fight, a force that could bind her to someone who saw her for who she truly was, and perhaps in time love her despite it all. Her steps slowed, not from exhaustion but from recognition. Danger still lurked. The night had not yet ended. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she did not feel entirely alone. And that small, fragile spark of hope, of trust, of something dangerously close to belonging, burned brighter than the silver flame coursing through her veins. The forest thinned, snow giving way to soft moss underfoot, and Lyra Moonshadow followed Asher Blackthorn in silence. The storm had softened, leaving the world coated in silver and ice, each branch glistening like crystal. The wind whispered through the treetops, carrying secrets she could almost hear, as if the forest itself were watching, waiting. She could feel the tension coiling in her muscles, the fire in her veins responding not just to fear, but to something older, something vast and dangerous that hovered over this place. Ahead a clearing appeared, bathed in the pale, haunting light of the full moon. It was a grove unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Trees twisted into shapes that seemed impossible, their bark etched with glowing runes that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat in stone. A circle of standing stones surrounded the grove, ancient and commanding, as if they had been waiting for centuries for someone to arrive. Lyra slowed, breath hitching. The silver flame within her flared, trembling as though recognizing the sacred energy that hummed in the air. She felt small, insignificant, yet the fire inside her stirred, insisting she belonged. Something in her chest tightened, a mixture of awe, fear, and a strange, electric anticipation she could not name. Asher's eyes were fixed on the runes, silver pupils reflecting the faint glow. "This is the place," he said softly, voice low, reverent, carrying weight that made her pulse quicken. "The sacred grove. The heart of the prophecy." Lyra's gaze swept over the circle, tracing the intricate symbols etched into the stones. Faintly as though alive, they glimmered in patterns she didn't understand. Then one symbol pulsed brighter than the rest and she froze. A mark etched in the stone mirrored the silver flame within her veins, flickering like a living thing. Words seemed to form in the glowing lines, the one with the silver flame. Her breath caught. She staggered back a step, heart hammering. "Me?" she whispered, incredulous. Her voice sounded fragile against the stillness of the grove. Why me? I can't control it. I can't even." "You can," Asher interrupted, gentle but firm, stepping closer. His presence seemed to quiet the grove, the wind stilling, the snow falling in slow, deliberate flakes. "You've always been able. You just didn't know it yet." Lyra shook her head, uncertainty battling with the fire rising within her. "No. They said I was cursed. My own pack, they called me dangerous, unpredictable. I can't do what you're saying. I can barely control myself when the flames rise. How could I possibly?" Her voice cracked, carried away on the wind, swallowed by the vastness of the sacred grove. She felt small, a frightened girl in a world that demanded power she didn't trust. And yet the forest around her seemed to hum in response, alive with energy, the standing stones glowing softly as if acknowledging her fear but also daring her to rise above it. Asher placed a hand lightly on the edge of one stone, tracing the runes with fingers that trembled almost imperceptibly. "This isn't about what you think you can or cannot control," he said, voice low, almost a whisper. "It's about what you are. Lyra Moonshadow, you are tied to something greater than yourself. Something older than your pack, older than this forest, older than any of the dangers you've faced. You are part of a prophecy, a choice that has been waiting for you since the beginning of time." Lyra's stomach twisted, a knot of fear and awe tightening inside her. "A prophecy? Just me. Just a girl with fire in her veins and nothing else. How can a prophecy want me? I'm not special." "You are," Asher said, turning to face her fully, the moonlight catching the silver in his eyes, making them seem luminous, endless. "You are the one who will tip the balance. Either you restore what has been lost, bring peace where there is chaos, or you will destroy it all. The choice is yours, and it always has been." The words hit her like ice water, shocking and impossible. Lyra's mind swirled. Destroy or save? Balance or ruin? Her heart beat erratically, each pulse carrying the weight of centuries, of a legacy she had never been allowed to understand. Her silver flame flickered violently in her veins, surging as if responding to the grove itself, acknowledging the truth in Asher's words. Her knees buckled slightly. I can't," she whispered, voice trembling. "I can't control it. How am I supposed to decide the fate of something I don't even understand?" Asher stepped closer, hand brushing hers, though not touching. Energy sparked in the space between them, the fire within her reacting to his presence. "You won't understand it at first," he said. "You won't know what it means or why you were chosen. But you have the strength, Lyra. I see it. The fire, the courage, the heart they all feared. It's all inside you waiting. And I will not let you face this alone." Lyra's chest tightened, conflicting waves of emotion crashing over her. Relief, fear, desire, and disbelief collided in a storm more violent than the blizzard she had just escaped. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But trust had always been a dangerous luxury for her, something that could be ripped away in an instant, leaving only pain. She closed her eyes for a moment, the cold air stinging her lashes, and saw it, visions flickering like shadows at the edge of consciousness. A pack kneeling before a towering figure, flames licking the edges of the world, darkness retreating, screaming, twisting, crumbling. Faces she didn't know yet felt familiar, illuminated by the silver fire of her own making. The air hummed with power, with destiny, with inevitability. Lyra gasped, stumbling backward. The visions receded, leaving her trembling, soaked in snow and raw emotion. I don't know if I can," she admitted, voice small, raw, and honest. "I don't know if I'm enough." "You are," Asher said, stepping closer, his voice now firm, unwavering. "You've survived every trial that should have broken you. You've faced betrayal, exile, fire, loss, and you are still here. That is what makes you enough. That is what makes you powerful. That is what makes you the only one who can do this." Lyra's eyes met his, searching, questioning, desperate. She wanted to believe, to surrender to the spark of hope he offered, but doubt still gnawed at her, sharp and insistent. "And if I fail? If I can't control it? If I destroy everything instead?" The grove seemed to respond to her words, the runes on the standing stones glowing brighter, thrumming with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. A gust of wind swirled around her, lifting her hair, biting at her cheeks, and carrying with it the scent of ancient earth and stone and power. The forest seemed alive, whispering encouragement, warning, urging her forward. Asher's voice softened, carrying warmth and strength that cut through the icy tendrils of fear. "Then you will rise again. You will learn. You will fight. That is what the prophecy demands. Not perfection, not certainty, but courage. Courage and the willingness to embrace who you are, no matter how dangerous it may seem." Lyra swallowed, the storm of emotions inside her churning violently. She felt the pull of destiny, heavy and relentless, like the gravity of the moon above, like the tug of the earth beneath her feet. She felt the fire inside her, hotter now, brighter, demanding recognition. It was alive, powerful, and terrifying, but also hers. And for the first time she realized that perhaps she did not have to fear it. Perhaps she did not have to run from it. Perhaps the silver flame that had always been a curse, A secret, a danger, could become a weapon, a shield, a beacon. The vision of the kneeling pack lingered in her mind, flickering behind her closed eyes, and she understood with a sudden shocking clarity that her life had led her to this moment. Every exile, every betrayal, every heartbeat of fear and pain had been preparing her for this. Preparing her to step into the sacred grove, to face the prophecy, to accept that she was not merely a girl who ran from fire, but the girl who could wield it, who could shape it, who could decide the fate of everything around her. Her chest heaved, eyes wide, heart racing, yet beneath the fear, beneath the trembling, a new certainty began to take root. She was not ready. She would never be fully ready. But she could not turn away. The prophecy had chosen her, the forest had called her, and Asher. Asher believed in her. And for now that was enough. Lyra opened her eyes, silver flame flickering faintly in her veins, and she nodded almost imperceptibly to herself. "I'll try," she whispered, barely audible over the soft wind, over the distant howl of wolves, over the hum of the sacred grove. "I'll try for them. For me. For everything." Asher's gaze softened just slightly, a shadow of a smile brushing his lips, and he stepped back, giving her space, letting the grove's power speak to her, letting her feel the weight and the wonder of the destiny that awaited. And Lyra Moonshadow, trembling, terrified, powerful, and alive, took a tentative step forward into her future. Into the storm of prophecy, into the fire she could not yet control, into the myth that had always been waiting for her. The sacred grove had barely begun to settle into an uneasy calm when the first roar shattered the silence. Lyra's silver flame flickered, quivering like a candle in a gale, responding instinctively to the danger she could feel before she saw it. The air vibrated with a tension that set her teeth on edge, made her muscles tighten, ready for flight. From the edge of the grove, shadows surged, darker than night, moving with coordinated fury. Lyra's stomach lurched. Darius Blackclaw. The rival alpha. A figure she had never met yet somehow feared instinctively, a predator in every sense, his presence radiating dominance and danger. Behind him, a horde of shadow wolves snarled and lunged, teeth gleaming, eyes glowing with malevolence. Lyra stumbled back, the snow crunching beneath her trembling feet. Her chest heaved, pulse racing, and the fire inside her veins roared, flickering uncontrollably. She could feel it. A raw, untamed power she could barely control, a danger even to herself. The grove seemed to tense along with her, the runes on the standing stones pulsing violently, echoing her panic. Asher stepped forward, blocking her instinctive retreat. His silver eyes locked on Darius with lethal focus, his stance wide, ready to confront the incoming threat. Every line of his body screamed control and power, yet the tension in his jaw betrayed the storm within. He had to make a choice, protect Lyra or obey the expectations of his own pack. Every alpha knows this moment, and every choice carries consequences. "Lyra," he said, low, urgent voice cutting through the roar of the approaching wolves, "stay behind me. Do not." But the words were unnecessary. The silver flame inside her was already responding to the threat, surging like a living thing, a wave of power she could feel in her chest, her arms, her legs, pulsing through her very bones. Her hands flared with silver energy as she tried desperately to control it, to direct it, to harness it into something useful rather than destructive. The shadow wolves struck first. They burst into the grove with a chaos that made Lyra stumble, snow and dirt kicked up into the air. Teeth bared, claws extended, they aimed for her, instinctively sensing the danger of her power. Fear twisted her stomach, made her knees weak, but the fire answered, rushing through her veins like molten silver. She raised her hands, and for a brief, fleeting moment, it obeyed. A wave of energy flared outward, knocking several of the shadow wolves back, forcing them to retreat just a step. The grove itself seemed to respond, branches thrashing as if alive, roots lashing out at the intruders, snow whirling in a protective spiral around her. But control slipped. The silver flame surged unpredictably, growing hotter, wilder. A flash of power erupted from her hands, sending Darius staggering back for a moment, but also threatening the sacred grove, threatening the standing stones, threatening everything. Lyra gasped, her heart hammering in terror and exhilaration. She could feel the strain, feel the danger of losing herself in the very power she had feared her entire life. Asher moved then, swift and commanding, placing himself between her and Darius. His hand barely touched hers as if to anchor her, to remind her she was not alone, and yet the contact sparked a jolt through her that made her tremble. "Control it," he ordered, voice firm but urgent, and she realized he was not just giving her a command, he was trusting her, believing in her even as the world fell apart around them. Darius recovered quickly, eyes gleaming with malice, mouth twisting into a cruel smirk. "Moonshadow," he hissed, voice sharp as a blade, "you dare summon power in my grove? You dare step into the prophecy you cannot possibly understand? You bring chaos." Lyra's chest tightened, silver flames surging dangerously. The accusation stung, not because it was untrue but because it carried the weight of centuries, of packs and leaders who had always misunderstood her, always feared her. And yet this time she would not cower. She would not flee without leaving her mark. With a burst of raw energy, she unleashed a controlled flare of silver fire, knocking several shadow wolves off their feet. The snow around her shimmered in blinding light, and Darius took a step back, momentarily disoriented. But he recovered, snarling as more shadow wolves surged forward. The battle was no longer just about survival. It was about proving she belonged, proving she was more than what the world had always said she was. Asher's voice cut through the chaos. "Lyra, focus. Trust yourself." His hand gripped hers, grounding her, and she felt a momentary clarity. The silver flame responded, bending to her will, forming a protective barrier around them. Wolves slammed against it, yelping, clawing, snapping, but the energy held. Yet the strain was enormous. Lyra's vision blurred, sweat freezing on her skin despite the storm, her body shaking violently from the effort of holding power she barely controlled. Her chest ached, lungs burned, and the fire within threatened to erupt beyond her control. And then, she saw him. Darius's eyes on her, filled with contempt, filled with hunger. He advanced, a predator confident in his prey's weakness. Rage and fear collided in her chest, and she knew she could not falter. Not now. Not with the stakes higher than ever, not with Asher standing there, trusting her, challenging her. The grove itself seemed to pulse in response, roots writhing like serpents, snow swirling violently, stones humming. Lyra released another surge, more powerful, more controlled than before, forcing the shadow wolves to retreat temporarily. Darius hissed, fury igniting, and the two alphas faced off, tension crackling like lightning between them. But the moment was fleeting. One misstep, one surge too strong, and the grove could collapse. The sacred energy teetered on the edge, reflecting the precarious balance of her own heart. She knew she had only moments. Only seconds to decide whether she could control the flame, control herself, and survive. And then the inevitable happened. A surge of energy misfired, erupting beyond her barrier, crashing into the forest edge with a deafening roar. Snow and dirt flew, trees groaned, and Lyra felt the full weight of her power, the consequences of her fire. She staggered backward, fear ripping through her chest. Darius's shadow wolves seized the moment, snapping at the edges of her barrier. Asher moved to protect her, but in that instant the pressure of the moment, the accusation of chaos, the hatred in the air became too much. Lyra knew she could not stay. He could not risk everything even with him. With a desperate, trembling movement, she tore herself away from Asher, sprinting into the forest beyond the grove, snow and shadow swallowing her as she ran. Her heart pounded, silver flames surging uncontrollably, fear and fury and despair and determination colliding in a storm that mirrored the chaos she left behind. She did not look back. She could not. She would survive and she would return. Revenge, redemption, control. Every heartbeat carried the promise. Behind her, Asher stood frozen, torn between duty and desire, pack expectations and the pull of his heart. He wanted to follow, to catch her, to protect her, but he knew the rules, the consequences, the danger. His chest ached as the silver-haired figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echoes of a storm and a promise of more to come. The grove was silent now, smoke and snow drifting through the air, the runes pulsing faintly as if mourning the separation, as if acknowledging that the clash had only begun. Asher's silver eyes burned with unspoken emotion, torn between loyalty and longing, between restraint and the pull he could not deny. And Lyra, running through the snow, trembling yet powerful, swore under her breath that she would not be taken lightly again. She would rise. She would fight. She would return. The forest swallowed her, but the fire inside her roared louder than ever. Lyra Moonshadow stumbled through the thick forest, snow crunching beneath her boots, breath coming in ragged, shivering bursts. Every step was deliberate, measured, driven by exhaustion and fear, yet there was also a strange surge of defiance that refused to let her fall. The silver flame within her still flickered, pulsing weakly with the remnants of the clash, leaving warmth that contrasted sharply with the biting cold around her. She found herself pressed against the side of a hidden rock face, discovering a narrow crevice almost hidden by overgrown roots and ice. The entrance to a cave. Moonlight spilled across the opening, silver light glimmering across her frozen lashes, painting her features in harsh contrast. Fear and fire, exhaustion and defiance. She slipped inside, teeth chattering, hoping the shadows and stone would hide her, hoping, foolishly, that the world had not yet caught up. And yet she was not alone. A soft, measured step echoed in the cave before she could even turn. Her heart slammed against her ribs, a wild, panicked rhythm, and instinctively, the silver flame within her flickered higher, curling around her like a protective veil. She spun, hands raised, eyes wide, and then she saw him. Asher Blackthorn. Standing there in the dim light, moonlight glinting in his silver eyes, his presence commanding yet tempered by concern. "Lyra," he said softly, voice low, intimate, almost hesitant. "It's just me. You're safe here, with me." Safe. The word sounded foreign, almost unbelievable, yet it tugged at something deep within her. She wanted to believe it, wanted to surrender to the promise, yet caution prickled her skin. "You shouldn't have followed me," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's dangerous." Asher stepped closer, careful, slow, each movement deliberate. "So are you," he said, almost a statement, almost a question. His eyes studied her, silver pupils reflecting the flicker of the small fire he had kindled near the cave wall. It wasn't much, just a few flames dancing over stones, but it made shadows sway across his face, casting him in a glow that was as dangerous as it was mesmerizing. "But I didn't come here to fight your danger. I came here to find you." Lyra's breath caught. Her pulse raced, a storm echoing the one that still raged in her chest. The cave smelled of earth and smoke, of ice and fire, and yet, above it all, there was the undeniable pull of him. Every step, every glance, every half-spoken word wrapped around her like chains she didn't want to break. She wanted to run, and yet a part of her ached to stay, to let herself be seen fully without walls or deception. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Lyra exhaled, a shuddering sigh that carried a fragment of relief and exhaustion. I don't know what I'm doing anymore," she admitted, voice low, raw. "Everything is chaos. Everything is fire. And I'm not sure I can control any of it." Asher nodded, taking another careful step closer, until the space between them was charged with tension that was almost unbearable. "I know," he said quietly. "I've seen it. The fire, the chaos, the fear. But I also see the courage, Lyra. I see you. Not the world's version, not the version they feared. All of you. Even the fire you fear." Her chest tightened. His words wrapped around her like warmth she had never known, stirring something vulnerable and fragile. She wanted to believe him, to let the weight of centuries of rejection and betrayal dissolve, if only for a moment. Yet doubt clawed at her, gnawed at the edges of her hope. Can I trust you?" she whispered, voice trembling, eyes searching his face for a sign, a promise, any certainty. Asher's gaze softened, silver eyes almost luminous in the flickering firelight. "I'm not asking you to trust blindly," he said, voice low, resonant, intimate. "I'm asking you to see that you don't have to be alone. Not tonight. Not in this fire. Not in this storm inside you. But I will not let you face it by yourself." Her heart raced, thundering against her ribs, and the silver flame within her shivered as though recognizing his words. It pulsed, responding not just to fear or anger but to him, to the nearness, to the connection that had formed amidst snow and shadow, chaos and storm. She felt a tremor of longing, a pull she could not define, a magnetic thread pulling her closer even as every instinct screamed caution. The fire in the cave crackled, sending sparks into the air, and Asher knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to her level, eyes never leaving hers. His hand hovered near hers, just inches away, a space charged with tension and unspoken desire. "You are allowed to feel," he said softly. You are allowed to fear. You are allowed to falter. And you are allowed to let someone be here for you. Even me. Lyra's breath hitched, and for a moment the cave, the snow outside, the storm in the forest, all of it faded. There was only the fire, their shared space, and the unspoken truth that this moment was dangerous, fragile, yet utterly alive. The pull between them was magnetic, inevitable, and terrifying. Her silver flame flared slightly, responding to the energy, dancing along her skin in a delicate, almost sentient shimmer. They were close now. Too close to retreat, too close to ignore. Her pulse raced, every nerve alive with anticipation, and she could feel the warmth radiating from him, grounding her, anchoring her, even as desire and fear twisted inside her chest. You don't understand, she whispered, voice barely audible, fragile yet resolute. If anyone knew, they'd come for me. They'd take it all away again. Asher's gaze softened further, a shadow of sorrow in the silver depths. Then I will guard you, he said. Not because you need me, but because I choose to. As I see you. And I will not let them take you from yourself, Lyra. Not now. Not ever. Her chest ached and tears pricked her eyes despite the cold. She had never been offered protection like this, never been seen so completely, never been allowed to exist in another person's eyes without fear, judgment, or rejection. She wanted to reach for him, to touch, to trust, to surrender, yet caution gripped her, cold and sharp. And yet, the tension between them grew, thick and palpable, a storm within the storm. The fire crackled, the cave hummed, and Lyra could feel the pull of him, the nearness, the promise, and the danger all wrapped in a single charged moment. Almost so close she could feel the brush of his lips, the heat of his skin, the weight of his gaze demanding hers. Her silver flame pulsed stronger, responding not just to fear or anger, but to desire, to connection, to the intimacy of being seen fully by someone who could understand the storm within her. She faltered, breath trembling, heart racing, teetering on the edge of surrender and retreat. Asher's hand hovered over hers, almost touching, and the unspoken question hung in the air, suspended in time. Could she trust him? Could she let herself feel, even just for a moment, even just tonight? Could she let herself be seen, be desired, be protected without fear of betrayal? The cave seemed to hold its breath with her, the fire crackling softly, snow melting outside in the gentle moonlight, and for a moment, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a world where trust was not a weapon, where love was not a danger, where fire could be her ally instead of her curse. Her lips parted slightly, eyes searching his, almost willing the answer, almost daring herself to believe in it. Asher's gaze held hers, unwavering, filled with unspoken promises and quiet intensity, and the world narrowed down to just this, just here, just now. And yet, the moment remained suspended, delicate, fragile, charged with emotion and danger alike. Lyra's heartbeat thundered, silver flame flaring gently along her veins, and she whispered, trembling, I don't know if I can. If I can trust anyone, not after everything. Asher's expression softened, almost tender, almost aching as he whispered back, then start with me. Just with me. Trust me. Or leave. The choice is yours. And in the quiet of that hidden cave under moonlight, amidst the crackling warmth of fire and the snow-silenced forest outside, Lyra Moonshadow realized that the choice, terrifying and beautiful as it was, might be the first step toward something she had never allowed herself to imagine: belonging, acceptance, love. The dawn had barely touched the forest when Lyra Moonshadow returned to the heart of the pack's territory, her mind swirling with memories of the hidden cave, the warmth of the fire, and the fleeting closeness she had felt with Asher Blackthorn. She had believed for a brief, fragile moment that trust could exist, that someone could see her, truly see her, and not recoil. Yet the shadows of the past and the whispers of betrayal were never far behind. The council gathered at the clearing, stone seats rising in solemn tiers, wolves assembled in strict rows, their eyes cautious, calculating. The air was thick with tension, heavy with judgment, each breath Lyra drew sharp and bitter. Her heart pounded in her chest, silver flame pulsing faintly beneath her skin, a warning she struggled to ignore. Lyra, her former friend. She had trained together, laughed together, shared secrets in the quiet hours of the night. And now, she stood at the forefront, a shard of malice glinting in her eyes. Lyra Moonshadow. Lyra's voice was clear, ringing with accusation, You have summoned a power we cannot control. Your silver flame, it will destroy us all. You are dangerous. You are chaos incarnate. And you betray your own kind. The words hit Lyra like a dagger, twisting deep into her chest. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but no words could form against the weight of shock and hurt. Lyra's betrayal was raw, intimate, searing, the kind that burned brighter than any flame she had ever known. She had trusted her, believed in her, shared herself with her. And now, this. The council murmured, fear rippling through the pack like a cold wind. She's unstable, one voice whispered, low and trembling. She cannot be allowed to stay. Lyra's silver flame flickered, responding to the emotion around her, pulsing hotter, faster, an uncontrollable heartbeat of energy. She clenched her fists, trying to rein it in, to suppress the fire that had always been both a curse and a secret strength. But the betrayal, the accusation, the fear, it fueled the flame beyond her control. And then she saw it, the first shimmer of her true power, a glimpse she had never dared release. A tendril of silver light surged from her palms, curling like liquid fire, illuminating the clearing, blinding those who dared look upon it. The air trembled, charged with energy, and the ground beneath her vibrated, a warning, a tremor, a declaration that the silver flame was alive, sentient, and beyond fear. Gasps echoed through the clearing. Wolves yelped and recoiled. The standing stones of the ancient grove seemed to pulse in recognition, resonating with the energy she had unleashed. Lyra's smirk faltered, fear flashing across her face. Lyra, what? Stay back. Lyra's voice cracked, a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and desperation. Her silver flame flared, expanding outward, twisting around her like a living entity. Shadows warped, snow whirled in chaotic eddies, and even the trees seemed to bend away, wary of the raw, untamed force she barely controlled. I am not a threat, not to those who stand with me. But if you push me, if you betray me, I will not hold back. Asher stepped forward, chest heaving, eyes locked on her, torn between instinct and obligation. Lyra, he shouted, voice cutting through the chaos. Stop. You are stronger than this, but you don't have to fight alone. She looked at him, tears streaking her face, snow melting on her cheeks, and for a moment, the world narrowed down to the space between them. She wanted to trust him, to feel his steadiness anchor her, but the pain of betrayal was too sharp, the fear too overwhelming. Her power roared in response, a reflection of her inner turmoil, a blaze that mirrored heartbreak and fury in equal measure. The council hesitated. The pack looked on, fear and awe mingling in their gaze. And then Lyra stepped forward, her betrayal complete, voice slicing through the tension. She must be contained. She cannot be allowed to live among us. She is a danger to everything we hold sacred. Lyra's heart shattered. Every bond she had believed in, every friendship she had treasured, seemed to crumble into ash. The silver flame responded, a burst of raw, uncontrolled energy that shot upward, illuminating the clearing with blinding light. Wolves screamed, snow and ice exploded outward, and for the first time the pack truly understood the danger, and the magnitude, of her power. Asher hesitated, eyes locked on the council, on Lyra, on the fear-stricken faces of those who should have trusted her. His heart battled with duty. His mind wrestled with loyalty. And yet his gaze never left Lyra. The fire in her veins, the raw, dangerous, beautiful power that had always frightened the world, he saw her. Fully. Completely. And the thought of leaving her to face the wrath alone was unbearable. Step away from her, he roared, voice firm, commanding, shaking the grove. Wolves froze mid-step, council members faltered. Even Lyra paused, startled by the intensity of his stance. She is not a weapon. She is not your enemy. And if you try to harm her... Lyra saw the conflict in his eyes, the tension between duty and desire, between loyalty to the pack and the pull of the heart. He saw it and understood. He could not fully choose yet, and the indecision gave her no choice but to flee. With a guttural cry, a release of power that shook the very air, Lyra turned and sprinted into the forest, snow and shadow swallowing her. The silver flame surged along her veins, her pulse hammering with adrenaline and fury, leaving a trail of light that marked her passage like a comet streaking across the night. Behind her, Asher stood frozen, chest heaving, eyes burning with unspoken emotion. He wanted to follow. He wanted to catch her, hold her, reassure her. But he could not. Not yet. Duty, honor, and the fragile rules of pack life bound him in ways he could not ignore. Yet even as she disappeared into the shadows, even as the clearing fell silent except for the crackling remnants of her power, Asher made a silent, unyielding promise. He would find her. No matter how far she ran. No matter how wild the fire. No matter how deep the betrayal. Lyra's steps carried her through the dense forest, snow crunching beneath her boots, heart racing with anger, sorrow, and determination. She could feel her power thrumming, reacting to every emotion, every thought, every heartbeat. She would not be controlled. She would not be imprisoned by fear or expectation. She would master the silver flame, or die trying. And somewhere in the distance, hidden by snow and shadow, Asher watched her vanish into the night, silver eyes glimmering with a mixture of fear, desire, and unwavering resolve. He would find her. He would protect her. And when he did, nothing, neither betrayal nor pack politics, nor even the fury of destiny itself, would stand between them. The forest echoed with the aftermath of chaos, the lingering heat of silver flame fading into a cold dawn. Lyra Moonshadow ran, trembling and powerful, heartbroken and unbroken, fire in her veins, vengeance in her soul, and a single unwavering thought guiding her. She would not be tamed. She would rise. She would return. Lyra Moonshadow's boots cut through the deep snow, each step sharp and deliberate, her breath rising in white puffs that dissolved into the cold morning air. Her chest burned, heart hammering not with fear this time, but with resolve, a pulse of fury that pushed her forward. The silver flame within her stirred violently, sensing the approach of the ritual site, the confrontation waiting, the forces aligned against her. She was no longer running in fear. She was running toward destiny. The clearing opened before her, rimmed with ancient stones that glowed faintly, trembling in anticipation of the energy she carried. Shadow beasts prowled at the edges, snarling, their black forms warped and shifting, eyes like coals in the dim light. Darius Blackclaw stood at the center, rigid, imposing, his posture radiating control and menace, yet betraying the tension of knowing he faced power beyond his comprehension. Around him, the pack elders murmured in anxious clusters, their fear palpable. Lyra stepped into the clearing, snow crunching beneath her feet, and stopped at the center, every nerve alight. The silver flame surged in response to her will, coiling around her arms, flickering along her shoulders, dancing like liquid fire, wings of energy unfurling behind her as if she were no longer just Lyra Moonshadow, but the incarnation of the prophecy itself. Her chest rose and fell with slow, controlled breaths, grounding herself, commanding the flame, channeling the power she had always feared. "Enough," she shouted, voice ringing like a bell across the grove, unwavering and strong. "I am not your weapon. I am not your pawn. I am not your sacrifice." The words carried through the forest, echoing off stone and tree, stirring the snow into violent swirls. The shadow beasts lunged instinctively, sensing the surge of raw energy, but the silver flame responded, coiling around her like serpents of light, deflecting attacks, throwing them back, a shimmering barrier of pure, controlled power. Darius took a step forward, eyes narrowing, energy crackling around him like static electricity, his presence commanding the clearing. "Moonshadow," he growled, voice deep and dangerous, "you cannot control that power. It will consume you, and all who stand near." Lyra met his gaze without flinching, silver flame rising to encircle her fully, illuminating her features with a spectral glow, casting shadows in every direction. "Then let it consume me," she roared, her voice layered with fury, heartbreak, and defiance. "But it will not destroy the innocent. It will not destroy my pack. Not today. Not because I say so, and because I will not be your sacrifice." The forest responded to her declaration. Trees swayed violently, roots creaking as if waking from centuries of slumber. Snow exploded in arcs and spirals, light shimmering across the grove in waves. The standing stones quivered and hummed with ancient energy, runes pulsing brightly as though acknowledging her rightful power. Even the earth beneath them trembled, tiny fissures racing through the frozen ground, heralding the awakening of forces long dormant. The ancestral voice whispered in her mind, echoing across generations. "You are the fire. You are the balance. You are the flame no one can contain." The words wrapped around her consciousness, amplifying her control, settling her fear, fortifying her resolve. The wings of silver energy behind her stretched wider, flaring and glowing like twin specters of light, as if the past and future itself had manifested in her. Darius snarled, releasing his own energy, a dark countercurrent to her silver brilliance. The clash of power made the clearing quake violently. Snow and debris swirled into a blinding tempest. Energy collided in arcs, striking the stones, lighting up the forest in jagged pulses. Wolves scattered, yelping, thrown off balance, yet some watched in awe, their instincts recognizing the shift in power, the rise of a force beyond any alpha's comprehension. Lyra's pulse thrummed with the rhythm of the forest itself, her silver flame flowing through her, wings of energy pulsing in harmony with the earth. Every ounce of fear, every shred of betrayal, every wound from her exile and Alara's treachery fueled her control, not chaos. She had become both fire and ice, power and purpose, the storm contained within flesh and bone. She advanced, every step deliberate, silver light radiating in concentric waves from her, striking Darius's dark energy, clashing with each pulse. "I am not afraid," she shouted, her voice carrying across the grove, echoing like a clarion call. "I am not yours to command. I am not theirs to fear. I am Lyra Moonshadow. And I claim this power. I claim my destiny." The earth trembled violently beneath their feet, fissures opening as the energy she commanded met the darkness he wielded. Sparks of silver flared into the air, striking the shadows, forcing Darius and his beasts to recoil, snarling in frustration. The forest itself seemed to awaken, leaves glistening with frost, branches bending toward her in awe, roots writhing as if offering allegiance. Lyra raised her hands to the sky, wings of silver energy flaring fully, feathers of light crackling with raw power. Her voice rang again, louder, fiercer, charged with ancestral authority. "No one will take my power. No one will control me. I am fire. I am flame. I am the balance this world has waited for." A pulse of energy erupted outward, knocking Darius off his feet, sending shadow beasts tumbling. Snow swirled violently, blinding even the elders, and the sacred stones glowed with a brilliant, almost holy light. Lyra's silver eyes reflected the entire forest, the fury of the storm and the unbreakable force of her will. She had transformed, no longer the frightened exile, no longer the girl who ran from her destiny, she had become the power itself. Asher appeared then at the edge of the clearing, silent, steady, awe and desire in his gaze. He did not step forward yet. He allowed her moment, recognizing that she must claim this victory herself. But in his eyes the promise burned clear. He would stand with her, fight with her, follow her through every shadow and storm. Darius struggled to rise, anger and fear twisting his features. This cannot be," he snarled, energy crackling violently around him, but Lyra's silver flame was unstoppable. Every surge of light was controlled, deliberate, a reflection of mastery, of defiance, of power finally claimed. The clearing seemed suspended in time, snow falling in slow motion, light and shadow dancing across ancient stones, and in that suspended breath of eternity, the realization struck the pack, the elders, the shadow beasts alike. Lyra Moonshadow had claimed her power. She was no longer a threat to herself. She was a force that no one could ignore, a storm that could not be contained, a destiny fulfilled before their very eyes. And in the center of the storm, silver flames blazing like wings of fire, Lyra held herself tall, breath steady, pulse aligned with the earth and whispered into the roaring silence, "I am not your sacrifice. I am the flame you will remember." The forest trembled in acknowledgement. The standing stones hummed, light spreading outward. The shadow beasts scattered, shrieking, unable to withstand her presence. Darius glared, defeated but alive, energy sputtering, his dominance shattered. The elders watched, awestruck and fearful, recognizing that the prophecy had not lied. The girl they feared was now a force beyond fear itself. Lyra exhaled slowly, silver flame dimming to a radiant glow, her wings of energy folding gently behind her. She looked toward the edge of the clearing, and there, among the shadows, Asher's silver eyes met hers. The storm of battle and betrayal had passed, but the connection remained, unbroken, unyielding, a tether that neither distance nor fury could sever. The night held its breath. The forest trembled, yet in that tremor lay acknowledgement. Lyra Moonshadow had risen. She had claimed the silver flame, claimed herself, and in doing so transformed the very world around her. The forest was quiet now, the tremors of silver flame fading into a soft, resonant hum, echoing through the frozen trees like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Lyra Moonshadow stood alone in the clearing, wings of energy folding behind her, eyes shimmering with the intensity of everything she had endured: betrayal, exile, fear, and the fierce, unyielding fire of her own power. Her chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths, the world around her trembling in the aftermath of her claim. The snow glittered like fractured light, the standing stones still humming faintly, and even the shadows seemed to linger hesitant, as if afraid to move against the force she had become. And there, across the clearing, silver eyes watched her. Asher Blackthorn, steady, unwavering, a promise lingering in the depth of his gaze. He did not step forward, did not speak, yet the weight of his presence was undeniable. A tether between them, invisible yet unbreakable, connecting her fire to his steady strength, anchoring her amidst the chaos she had summoned and survived. The wind stirred softly, carrying echoes of the fallen, the shadow beasts, the dissenting pack members, the betrayal of Lyra, reminders of the pain that had forged her. Lyra felt the pull of all those forces, the pull of destiny, of prophecy, of the unyielding demand of her silver flame. And in that moment she realized the question was no longer hers alone. The voice of the narrator, soft yet cutting through the stillness, asked, "Would you choose her, or fear her power?" A pause hung in the air, pregnant with tension, heavy with the weight of countless unspoken possibilities. Lyra's gaze lifted to the sky, silver flame still shimmering faintly across her veins, and she wondered aloud, though only she could hear. Am I a heroine, or just a girl cursed with too much fire? Her fingers flexed, energy coiling gently along her arms, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to hum in resonance with her heartbeat, as if the earth itself demanded the answer, demanded allegiance, demanded recognition of the force she had become. The wind carried the echoes of the clearing, fractured snow, ancient stones, the trembling branches of the forest, all silent witnesses to the moment she had carved with fire, blood, and unbroken will. And then, as the silver light pulsed softly one last time, the narrator's voice lingered, a soft, lyrical pull that reached through the listener, weaving into their imagination and emotion. If Lyra's story set your heart ablaze, subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections. Here we tell stories that burn, linger, and haunt. The question remained, suspended in the cold air, piercing and unforgettable. Would you choose her? Could you stand beside her fire, embrace her power, follow her into the storm she had become? Or would you turn away, afraid of what she represented, afraid of the strength that dared to claim its own destiny? The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the answer as Lyra Moonshadow, fire in her veins and resolve in her heart, turned toward the shadows beyond the clearing, wings of silver light folding, her figure poised between promise and peril, leaving the audience with the weight of the unspoken choice. Whose side would you be on, when fire answers to no one but itself? The forest lay bathed in silver moonlight, snow sparkling like fractured diamonds across branches and frozen earth. A silence had fallen over the grove, heavy and reverent, broken only by the soft crunch of footsteps against frost. Lyra Moonshadow walked beside Asher Blackthorn, each movement measured, deliberate. The fire within her had calmed, wings of silver energy folding behind her like a cloak of light, yet the power thrummed beneath her skin, a quiet heartbeat of the storm she had mastered. Behind them, the remnants of the pack followed cautiously, their eyes reflecting awe and lingering fear. Some carried respect, others suspicion, but all sensed the shift. The world had changed beneath Lyra's feet and no one could step back to the way things were. Every tree, every stone, every shadow seemed to lean closer, watching, listening, trembling in recognition of the girl who had risen from exile to command fire itself. The wind whispered through the branches, soft yet insistent, carrying the scent of snow, pine, and the faint metallic tang of silver flame lingering in the air. Lyra's eyes lifted to the sky, where clouds parted to reveal the full moon, luminous and knowing. She felt its gaze upon her, felt the pulse of the prophecy moving through the world, echoing in her bones, whispering that this night was only the beginning. As they moved, the ground beneath their feet trembled subtly, a low, almost imperceptible quiver that hinted at a force far greater, a presence unseen. Wolves paused mid-step, ears pricked, fur bristling. Lyra's fingers flexed instinctively, silver flames stirring in response. But this tremor was unlike anything she had felt. It was vast, ancient, deliberate. A shadowed voice cut through the stillness, slow and reverberating, not from any wolf or man, but from the darkness itself. She is not the only one. The words wrapped around the clearing like a spectral fog curling into trees, stones, even the wind. Lyra stiffened, heart hammering, eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. Asher's hand brushed hers in silent reassurance, steady, grounding, yet his jaw tightened, reflecting the unspoken tension, the same tremor of fear and anticipation coursing through her. The voice came again, more urgent, prophetic. The true alpha has yet to rise. The words reverberated in the very air, sinking into the snow, rooting into the ancient grove. Lyra's pulse quickened, instinct warning her, body alive with anticipation and dread. This was no ordinary threat. This was not just a challenge to her power, or a rival alpha seeking dominance. This was the stirrings of a force older than any pack, older than the prophecy itself. A presence that would reshape destiny. The wind picked up, carrying whispers from unseen lips, brushing through Lyra's hair and the folds of her gown, tugging at the edges of the moonlit forest. She tightened her grip on the air around her, sensing the rhythm of something awakening, a heartbeat echoing in the world itself, waiting for recognition, waiting for challenge. Asher's silver eyes scanned the horizon, muscles coiled, alert. He did not speak, he never needed to. His presence beside her, solid and unwavering, conveyed protection, partnership, and trust. And yet even he could feel it. The tremor of power far greater than any alpha's, the lurking shadow of destiny that demanded attention, that would not be ignored. Lyra's chest rose and fell with slow, measured breaths, yet beneath the calm exterior, adrenaline and awareness hummed like an electric storm. The silver flame within her pulsed faintly, responsive, sensing the echoes of something ancient and powerful approaching, as if even her own energy had recognized the awakening. She was no longer merely a girl claimed by fire. She was a beacon, a signal, a force that had drawn attention across realms of shadow and moonlight. A soft hiss of wind rippled across the clearing, scattering snowflakes in arcs of luminous silver. Wolves bristled, ears twitching, some lowly growling, others pressed closer to the ground, aware that this presence, unseen, incomprehensible, was something older, stronger, and unbound. Lyra tightened her fist, silver flame glimmering, wings of light twitching like the wings of a great bird ready to take flight, her body poised for confrontation, for recognition, for destiny. The moon hung high, bathing the forest in silver, yet the tremor beneath them continued, spreading, reaching, hinting at power beyond mortal comprehension. Lyra's voice, soft yet firm, whispered to herself, "I am ready. Whatever comes, I will not flee. I will not be broken. I will rise." The voice from the shadows lingered, echoing faintly, almost like a promise, almost like a threat. She is not the only one. The true alpha has yet to rise. A hush settled over the clearing, the forest holding its breath, the wind frozen in anticipation. Even the distant mountains seemed to lean closer, aware, reverent, awaiting the inevitable collision of destiny and power. Lyra's silver eyes glimmered, reflecting both moonlight and fire, the weight of prophecy and the spark of rebellion coiled together in perfect balance. Asher's hand found hers again, firm, anchoring, a silent vow of partnership, of battle, of whatever storms might come. Together they stepped forward into the moonlit forest, every nerve alive, every shadow a potential threat, every heartbeat a drum calling them toward the unknown. The tremors beneath their feet grew just slightly, subtle but insistent, a reminder that the world had changed, that forces far greater than any pack politics were stirring, and that Lyra Moonshadow's story was far from finished. And in the distance, hidden by snow and shadow, the voice whispered one final time, slow and deliberate, curling through the trees like smoke. "The true alpha has yet to rise." The words faded, lingering, resonant, prophetic. And the clearing remained still, save for the soft shimmer of silver flame, the soft crunch of footsteps in snow, and the quiet, terrifying knowledge that what had begun tonight, the awakening, the rise, the claim of power, was only the beginning. The screen of the mind's eye faded slowly, the forest darkening, moonlight bending through the trees, shadows deepening, and the audience was left with the weight of unspoken threats, unanswered questions, and the certainty that Lyra Moonshadow's journey, fiery, unstoppable and fated, was only just beginning. This isn't over.